Sup Atlas, Sam Battlefields here. Thanks for joining me on my journey into the constraints-led approach, CLA coaching in general. Had a good morning. It was just me, Dave, Hodges, and Ridwan, which was the same for yesterday. And we've been running through quite a few like open seated or open guard, just open seated or open supine guards, and I really wanted to slice as much as possible the game right down, right? So yesterday I gave some win conditions. I gave some. I'm probably going to end up using the terminal and continuous, but terminology from Greg's recent couple of videos, just because he's so precise with his language. Can't thank that man enough for how accurate he is with everything that he talks about. But anyway, so yeah, part of the game yesterday was I was hoping. And here's the thing: like, I had a session intention, but I'm not explicit with my session intention up front. Mostly because I want them to feel what I'm doing, what I'm intending them to feel, rather than me tell them, hey, this is what I expect you to feel. So I think that's. I'm not sure if that's something that I'm doing that I should change. Might want to have a chat with a couple of people around that. But ultimately, I think it works better this way, because they're not sort of overthinking what I want them to do. They're thinking about the task and the outcome, right? And so yesterday I gave a particular task, and I really tried to slice it down so that this particular thing was just keep the soles of the feet away, and the person on the bottom was just to try and get their feet on the inside. So whether that be 2 hooks behind the knees or anywhere on the legs, or 2 hooks, 1 hook and 1 foot on the hip. I didn't really care, but what ended up happening was I just got a lot of the time people would automatically try to pass, right? So and then the same thing happened today. Ridwan would just he'd be trying to shoot right round, and then push the legs down, and then he'd be kind of passing, and I'm like, nah, and once again, like, I'm not giving them my intention explicitly, so I just constrain the game, and I constrained it down again, and then Dave, and this is not calling anyone out, like, this is my process. This was literally my process. What I really wanted them to do was to see the pathways that emerged, or was to see the opportunities for action that emerged when you just controlled where the soles of the feet were, and that they weren't on the inside, right? And as long as they're turned away from you, the wide variety of opportunities that are available to you. So eventually, I had to constrain it all the way to you can only grab ankles, because when I started I was like, you can only grab shins or ankles, and that just immediately diverged into pushing at the top of the shin close to the knee, so and then trying to crush over, and it wasn't part of my intention. So anyway, afterwards, so after we played a few games, a few skirmishes with just trying to, and the other constraint, you had to stay in front of them, right? So you couldn't try and angle off or anything. You had to stay in front of them, and you had to address the soles of the feet. And finally, we got to the skirmish that I actually wanted to see, and developing the skills that I actually wanted to see. So a couple of good outcomes. Ridwan mentioned that he was like, "Oh, you don't have to do big movements. You can just like shift the sole of your foot, sole of their foot a little bit away from you." And I'm like, "Fuck yeah, awesome." But one of the kind of big revelations that Dave had, I wouldn't say it was a revelation, but maybe, I don't know. But something that he said was, in all our training previously, if someone got connections on you, because it was sort of so one-sided, there was no real teaching to pass. We were taught to guard. Right, so there was no, 50-50 offense-defense sort of thing. It was just we're teaching how to take you down. So, and what he said was along the lines, paraphrase, that whenever someone got those connections, I felt like I was going down regardless, because we hadn't been taught to deal with this kind of stuff. We hadn't been taught to just make a disconnect. So we were speaking about disconnecting and connection. So we've spoken about this before. I call when you're attacking, you want to make you want to do the Christian mingle. You want to do the meaningful connection, right? When you're defending, you want it to be an Ashley Madison. If they're even attempting to get a connection, you want to try and break it as soon as possible, right? And then today we sort of thought, well, you want to be the one dictating the connection, right? So I called it the Bumble, right? So you want to be the woman on Bumble. You want to be the one dictating when the connection's being made, yeah? So, let's see if I can get around this dude. So anyway, one of the things that came up as well was like, teaching a technique is essentially a pathway that has been a pathway. Yeah, technique is essentially a pathway that has been observed and then attempted to be refined. Right? But what we don't teach, or what we teach, is the conditions that allow those pathways to reveal themselves. Yeah. So, for example, I remember being taught, and this is not a sledge at all, because all of these kind of conditions of the technique are required, but you don't have. I remember being taught like a leg drag to a leg drag pass. Yeah, so they've got their feet on you. You step back, you pull it up, you then pull it across. Blah blah blah. Step, and then you crush into their knees, and then you're kind of sitting in like a power ride sort of situation, and then you go into mount. Yep, happy days. But the amount of times that I'd tried those steps, step back, pull this, it just wouldn't work, because in many ways the conditions, in all ways, the conditions hadn't been properly met. So conditions need to be met in order for pathways to be revealed. Yeah, and that's what we teach. We teach these, or that's what I'm revealing to people through these battles, through these skirmishes, is these pathways that then allow the techniques the pathways to be viewed and acted upon. Yeah, because the amount of times that I'd be doing that knee through the leg drag pass, and I'd step back like I'd been taught, step back so that the foot on my hip had space so I could then pull it across. And as soon as I fucking did that, what a dickhead. What a dickhead. As soon as I did that, they dropped their foot to the ground, or the step by step didn't work because there was variation that I wasn't aware of, or that maybe not aware of, but I was too focused on the step by step. Yeah. Really good example. I've started. So I think a few months ago I was just working tons on the double leg takedown, right? And I was starting to get the timing, and I was starting to hit it, and I was hitting it regularly. And I was like, yeah, this is fucking great. Like, it's hard on me. I was really having to put in work for it, but I was getting it, and I was getting the timing, and I was understanding like what it took to get it, because I was setting my own conditions for that pathway to be available to me. And I started working on drop Seoinage, and in the past I'd say 4 weeks, yeah. And the first few times, gross, fucking drop Seoinage, smash, and they're on top of me, on my back. I'm in turtle. I'm fucked, yeah. But just by putting myself in the situation a couple of times with a little bit of a setup, with a bit of consciousness around it, I started going, oh yeah, okay, like this is already here. And so the last, I'd say 3 times I've attempted it, I've got something resembling an okay Seoinage, like drop Seoinage. And then today, it was like I had this underhook on the same side, so it wasn't even, it wasn't the appropriate one, but it gave me enough of a space. I was lifting it up, but he kind of, I won't explain any further because on that, but essentially I saw an opportunity and I took it, and it was like, you probably would have been like, damn, that was textbook, like, because of the conditions were right for that position or that technique to emerge correctly in inverted commas, in order to conditionally look like a perfect Seoinage or drop Seoinage. So I think the biggest takeaway for me today was the idea that we are, or what I tend to work on when I'm working on skirmishes, is opening the conditional pathways that are conditionally opening the pathways that will allow a battle, which will be the wider positional sort of dominance, I suppose, which will allow that to happen. I think that's a really cool way to look at it. Anyway, Sam Battlefields here. I've rambled for long enough. Much love, peace.